Next up, Sega.
How's it going, everybody? Spencer here with another weekly video for you all to enjoy. Today I wanted to talk about something a little bit different. I know I've been spending a lot of time talking about Atlus and Sega ports, but something that I have been seeing on Twitter and just kind of the general discussion with all these recent re-releases and ports is something that really doesn't ever get talked about that much. Now, I know if you've listened to my weekly podcast, Shin Megami Tensei Network, you may have heard this come up every now and then, but a lot of people don't really know this, but all of the most recent ports that Atlus has been doing, not re-releases or sort of like re-enhanced or even like in some cases like Strange Journey remakes, those are all always internally developed. So let's just say, for example, Persona 5, that was developed by Studio Zero, and they did not develop Royal, but that was still internally developed by the team who did Persona 4 Golden. Catherine then originally was developed by the Persona 5 team. Studio Zero next went and worked on Full Body. All of that still very internal, everything like that. Same thing with Strange Journey to Strange Journey Redux, and what I think is so interesting is Atlus as a company doesn't actually do a really good job of kind of highlighting their teams of like, hey, who's really working on this? So like, unless you're combing through the credits or interviews, you're not really going to know, hey, who really worked on Tokyo Mirage Sessions or who worked on the dancing games. But what's really funny is they have two exceptions with this, at least that I can think of in terms of Atlus. Sega is a little bit better, but they're a lot more kind of spread out and do a lot less internal development outside of Yakuza or even Sonic. And even with Sonic, you know when a game is made by the Sonic team and you know when games are made by the Yakuza team. But say, for example, with Atlus, unless you're at Etrian Odyssey and you are making the Etrian Odyssey games, or if you're Vanillaware, you are very, very clearly, hey, this is a game made by them. We are the publisher, but it is not an Atlus game. I always find that kind of interesting. Like, when you see people talking about 13 Sentinels, I'm always amazed how in the comments people with like a sense of like company loyalty will be like, well, it's an Atlus game, I have to support it even if I know nothing about it. Like with 13 Sentinels. Either way, you should buy 13 Sentinels no matter who the publisher was, even if it was THQ or whatever. It's a great game. That's not the point of this video. The point of today's video is we are going to take a look at the ports not developed by Atlus, but that were published by Atlus, and yet for some reason no one ever talks about the fact that they were all farmed out to different port houses around the world. So first up, we're just going to go chronological with the first major one that not a lot of people talk about, mostly due to its terrible release timing, and that is Catherine Classic. Now, Catherine Classic was released in January 2019, a whole month before Catherine Full Body was releasing in Japan, and terrible release timing aside, this was Atlus's first really big foray into PC ports, and the company who Sega ended up hiring to port Catherine to PC was this company called the Eccentric Ape. Now, if you've never heard of the Eccentric Ape, congratulations, this will be an ongoing trend with all of these companies. If you have heard of any of these companies I'm going to talk about, please let me know in the comments below, because they are very, very hard to find unless you are specifically looking up the company name. So, the Eccentric Ape doesn't really have that big of a pedigree to really stand out upon in terms of what have they done. Now, something you'll find in common with almost all of these games is these are very small teams porting these games. Obviously, depending on the team and the scope of the project, yeah, having something like 8 to 20 people working on a port for one system, you're not really going to need like a 100-man team. So let's just take something like an example of, even if you looked at the size of even something like a Vanillaware game, Vanillaware is still a pretty small team working on games, but these games getting ported are going to have such a short section in the credits that if you're not really looking out for it, you could easily miss it, such with Catherine Classic. So, just a little bit of history with the Eccentric Ape, in case anyone was curious. They have worked on some recent stuff with Sega, specifically for their 60th anniversary, outside of Catherine Classic. They helped work on Streets of Kamurocho, that Streets of Rage Yakuza crossover. They also helped port the Golden Axe canceled prototype demo that was recently up for a timed release. Now, I only kind of say unfortunately just because I know the way Sega kind of handled releasing that prototype could have been done a whole lot better, but hey, that has nothing to do with the Eccentric Ape. They just helped port the game from Unity onto PC. And yeah, so really, really weird. I would love to know how Atlus or Sega finds these port houses. I don't know if it is just them looking at who they have heard of, because like these teams are all so small, I can't imagine them coming to Atlus or Sega and pitching them the idea of like, oh my gosh, we're such huge Atlus fans, let us port Catherine to PC. Because even Sega, like the few things they have said about these porting projects, especially with their PC stuff, is like, it is their idea, it is them testing the waters, and I will continuously find it funny that even though they've been around for so many years, they still seem to need the test the waters for a community who wants to play their games on as many systems as possible. But hey, that is neither the point. Either way, if you are interested, or if by some miracle someone from the Eccentric Ape is watching this, I would love to learn more about the process of porting Catherine to PC, but unfortunately, we don't know that much. But hey, at least we know who developed it, the Eccentric Ape. Thank you for your work. Speaking of porting things to PC, our next game we're talking about is Persona 4 Golden. Now, what's really interesting about Persona 4 Golden's PC port is a couple of things. So, Catherine Classic was definitely a Western initiative. That was Atlus and Sega West trying to show Japan, hey, look, we can make games sell in the West. Now, obviously, as we mentioned before, terrible release timing, could have been better, also could have been full body, but there are a whole other myriad of issues as to why that wasn't the case. But with Persona 4 Golden coming to Steam, what was so crazy about this was the fact that this was actually spearheaded by Atlus Japan, and even though it was an international and a worldwide release, it was so funny kind of hearing Atlus Japan talk about this release as if it was like, hey, this was a big deal for us, we wanted to bring this game to Steam, see how it did. Obviously, if anyone was even paying attention, when Golden came out on PC, it absolutely destroyed in sales. It was like released perfectly, pretty slow summer, not a lot was really going on. Obviously, the game had been on PlayStation Vita for like almost 8 years at that point, and everyone had been saying, hey, it's like one of the best Atlus games of all time. Now it's on a system that millions of people own, so not a big surprise that it ended up doing crazy well. But something people didn't really talk about, who the heck ported this game? It was not Atlus Japan, because God knows they weren't going to be getting those Vita dev kits and finding a way to make it work on PC. I think what's more crazy is, like, while the Eccentric Ape was surprising because, like, oh, I haven't really ever heard of them and they have a pretty small pedigree, I think it's more interesting when you see who Atlus Japan picked to port Golden to PC, and they picked Pre-App Partners. Pre-App Partners is pretty much a media conglomerate, and they have done stuff from anime to VTubers to now porting one of the best PlayStation Vita games of all time to Steam, and this is probably one of the most financially viable projects of all time. It is just really crazy of like, hey, who should we pick to port one of our most famous and cherished games of all time to this enormous platform? Let's find the, like, really small studio in Japan who does VTubers. Yeah, VTubers are hot. I'm sure they could do Vita ports good. VTubers, you know, it works. So, absolutely mind-boggling when you then look at what Pre-App has done. The port, I have not really played myself just because I don't do much PC gaming, but they, for the most part, did pretty well. They added the stuff they needed to. I know there was a couple of bugs at launch, but they have been ironing them out. So, hey, shoutouts to you, Pre-App. From VTubers to Vita games, you are living the dream, so just cannot ever get over that of like, yeah, I mean, I get you don't really want to, like, kind of brag, hey, we didn't make this game ourselves, but check out the small team we hired to do it. But I don't know, I at least, that's part of why I wanted to make this video. Like, I just find it so interesting, not only who these companies are who are porting and developing these Atlus games to new platforms, but also, like, what's the behind the scenes talks with this? Like, how big of a deal are these ports? Speaking of how big of a deal things are, and this one actually came up recently, if you follow me on Twitter, Catherine Full Body. Now, most people may be saying to yourself, Spencer, Catherine Full Body, that's an Atlus game. It was ported to Switch, PlayStation 4, and Vita, all internally, so what's the big deal here? Unfortunately, no, that's not true. Atlus internally developed the PS4 version and the Vita version, but for whatever reason, the people in charge over at Atlus decided to actually hire Technical Arts, and they were the ones who ported Full Body to Switch. Now, Full Body on Switch is actually kind of one that really went under the radars. I know that if you were interested in the game and just hadn't picked it up, I know a couple of people who really got it, but this is a port that came out in July worldwide on Switch, and I just feel like went super under the radar. And to no harm of the own game or the port or even the marketing, it was just one of those things that there probably wasn't that big of a market for it. People weren't really clamoring for it, even though it has like all the DLC and it is a localized, officially released portable version of the game. But what's so crazy about this then is everyone just kind of assumed, oh, it's a console port, so it has to be from Atlus. Like, why would they not do it? Like, they probably could have just done it and wrapped it up in there. And I know a lot of people did. And what's so funny is, no, Technical Arts is this video game developer in Japan who, again, have a really, really small team, a really, really small pedigree. And let me tell you, by the way, if you are trying to find Technical Arts Corporation and you are not specifically knowing where to go in terms of URL or finding their social media presence, you're going to have a really, really hard time. And I spent probably way longer than I should have tracking down this company. But I thought was so interesting is, like, it's not like they have no social presence. Like, as of this recording, they have 65 likes on Facebook for their Facebook page. They have released other games, like they have Cyber Tennis for Oculus Go. They've released a couple of other titles. And Catherine Full Body definitely seems to be their biggest title on Switch. This company just has absolutely no social footprint at all. Again, another one, I'm just like, how on earth did this company, how did Atlus find them, or how did they find Atlus for this port? It's just so interesting. And again, not really going into the specifics of the quality of the port, but like, hey, again, it's another fine port. Is it perfect? No, there's slowdown. There's like other little compensations that they had to make to get it run on Switch, but just another really weird one of like, hey, okay, Technical Arts, like, good job, you landed this like really, really big gig for you, but I at least for me, as someone who loves the behind the scenes of video games almost as much as I love playing them, I just really wish there was more forward facing information about, like, what was that process like? What was it like not only working on a enhanced port of a PlayStation 3 and 360 game, but like, what was it then like bringing it to Nintendo for the first time, adding in new things? Because like, unlike Catherine Classic or Golden on Steam, like, this one at least added, like, there was new voices, like, there was actually like new content made specifically for the Switch version that's nowhere else. Well, either way, last but certainly not least, we are here to talk about the most recent port not developed by Atlus Japan, and that is Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster. Now, this game was developed by ITL. That stands for Imaginative Technology Land. And this company is kind of interesting in the sense of this one has a much longer pedigree. They have a very, very thorough website about all of their games from the early 2000s to 2020. Now, ITL has worked on tons of ports. Not only did they work on Nocturne Remastered, they've worked on Guilty Gear ports, they've worked on the Kunio-kun games, they've worked with Namco on Pac-Man, they've done tons of their own games for mobile, they've also helped to work on SMT4 Apocalypse/Final. So this is a company that has a lot of games under their belt and a lot of ports specifically. So this one definitely makes a lot more sense. I could see someone like Atlus finding them and being like, oh, okay, you've worked with Arc System Works, you've worked with Namco, they've got a really big pedigree. So this one definitely makes the most sense. But what's so funny about this is easily the most well-known company we have with ITL, and yet somehow this is the most infamous port for what you think might be the easiest game. So Nocturne Remaster, as we have talked about many, many times on this channel before, or on the podcast, came out on PlayStation 4 and Switch. Obviously, it is a port of a very well-loved game that was a PlayStation 2 cult classic RPG that unfortunately had lots of issues by the time it finally did come out in Japan back in October. Now, Atlus is still looking into it. We don't have any words yet on when any patches may be coming, or if any patches are coming, or what they are really doing. All we know is they are investigating it. But I just, again, find it so crazy that, like, out of all these companies we've talked about, the one that has the highest lineage and like the most social presence worked on somehow the most controversial port out of all of these Atlus games that weren't developed by Atlus. So, as I've talked about before, I hope that ITL can patch this game. I hope that when this finally does come out in the West, we see it on more platforms, because, like, let's be real, Nocturne is running in Unity. It is in a PlayStation 2 emulation wrapper. Port that to PC. That is the easiest port you could ever do. Bring it to Xbox for all who knows. Like, I mean, just think about, like, all the easy ones they could do without even having to fix anything. But hey, if you can, please fix it. Give people a little more options. Like, we're not asking you to, like, make any miracles happen here, but if you could make this a better sell than people looking at my coverage of this game and who are looking at it and just going, oh, so I should just emulate it. Like, that's so tragic for me, because, like, I would never advocate emulating anything, but, like, at the end of the day, if it's like, hey, buy this game for X amount of dollars, that's the remaster, but it's a little bit inferior to the original, or you can buy the original still brand new for like $20 physically, or even like $10 digitally, legally, and that will be just as good of an experience. It's a little bit heartbreaking. So if by some miracle anyone here at ITL is listening, I wish you luck. I hope that getting a patch out can fix this game, and more importantly, its reputation. Either way, guys, that was my video. I was wanting to talk about something kind of more behind the scenes-y, and I know development stuff is not everyone's cup of tea, but please let me know what you think. Did you know about any of these companies? Were you an Eccentric Apes fan, a Pre-App Partners fan, a Technical Arts fan, or an ITL fan? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for supporting me in my recent videos. If you would like, you can follow me on Twitter. I am at Torchwood4SP or at SMT Network. Either way, guys, I hope you are all having a good rest of your weekend, and I will see you later. Bye.